You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file.
That doesn't sound too hard.
Boom! This is Making Tracks.
This is the way.
Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
I know these people. They are brutal. Does this look Jedi to you?
That's not how the Force works.
They'll never see it coming.
Count me in.
Mr. Mark!
We've got a panel in a few minutes, haven't we?
We do.
Costuming Across the Galaxy panel.
Yes, I don't know who came up with that title, but absolute genius.
Generic, but beautiful. So sit back, have a cup of tea, listen to me and Mark and a few other folks talking on the Cosplay Central stage in the Costuming Across the Galaxy panel.
Oh, give me the hot mic. That's brave. Okay, so lots to talk about. We've got, how long? We've got about half an hour.
Yep.
So I shall start with Michael. Tell me who you are, what you do. Tell us a little bit about your group of reprobates.
Hello everyone, I'm Michael. I'm Commanding Officer of UK Garrison here in the UK. We're part of a worldwide organisation that basically do Star Trek and Star Wars costumes. And there's about 16,000 members worldwide. There's about 400 members in the UK. And we generally dress up and help raise money for charity.
That's a good job, Mark. Tell us a little bit about the Rebel Legion.
Hi, okay, my name's Mark Mulcaster. I am the base commanding officer for Elstree Base, which is the Rebel Legion base representing the UK. So that's England, Scotland and Wales. Northern Ireland's actually got their own separate base. We're basically the sister club to the 501st, as in members of the 501st decided they wanted to do good guys costumes and were told, well, if you want to join the rebellion, go and start a rebellion. So they went and they started their own costume club, which basically deals in all the good guys costumes. So it's everything from Padme Amidala over there to Resistance pilots and Han, Chewie, Luke, Princess Leia and everybody else in between.
And Wayne, tell us a bit about the Mercs.
Hi, I'm Wayne. I'm Alarad, or Commanding Officer of Vok'Chi Clan, Mandalorian Mercs. And we are the UK and the Republic of Ireland clan for the Mandalorian Mercs Costume Club. We are a worldwide organisation again, and much like our other clubs, we follow suit. We do costuming at events. We have custom Mandalorians, and we also have canon Mandalorians as well. So characters that you will see on screen. We love doing charity events, and I'll pass it back over to Mr. Newbold.
Thank you. So, Michael, if somebody wants to, for example, get into costuming and they see this fine fellow and they think, that's what I want to do, that's a big stretch if you've never done it before. So where would you suggest somebody start if they were kicking off their journey on that?
So the biggest thing is to do your research, and just research. Don't just go and spend a load of money on a costume, because like most of the clubs, we have what's called a costume reference library, a CRL, and you can find out exactly what's needed. So all the different bits. I mean, this is a Shore Trooper squad leader, and all this is 3D printed. So, but there's certain differences between all the different Shore Troopers, which a lot of you may not be aware of. Some of them have lots of armour on the side here, where this squad leader doesn't. But it's a case of joining up to our forums, so signing up, becoming sort of a basic member, seeing what others are doing, and what we call a work in progress, a WIP. And what they're building, then sort of starting your own, and we'll assign you an armourer, and they'll guide you through the process of putting something like this together. I mean, it can seem quite daunting at first to put it together, but we'll guide you through the whole process.
So Mark, similar question. In the Rebel Legion, there's not as much hard armour as there is, for example, in the 501st.
No, I mean, that's probably one of the good things about the Rebel Legion, is that the costumes are kind of varied in respects that a lot of them are soft costumes. So I'm standing in a Resistance pilot costume at the moment, and this is referred to as a soft costume because it's mainly made out of fabric. I mean, the good thing is, to a degree, the nice thing about all three clubs is that we work in a similar but slightly different way. And so the processes that you'd want to go through with a 501st from UK Garrison are similar for the Rebel Legion, at least, and pretty much the same for the Mando Mercs. So it means that once you join one club, you kind of like, you're on a much better footing to understand the processes that you need to do to join the other clubs. So like I said, so this is a Resistance pilot costume. So this is from the sequel trilogy. And this is what we refer to as a generic costume. So whilst Poe Dameron wears this costume in The Force Awakens, you see lots of other pilots who don't actually have names, which means that it's a lot more accessible so that you don't necessarily have to then build your costume, wear the same Poe Dameron helmet. You've got a little bit of customization with the helmets, so you can have your own design. But the actual costume itself would be similar because it's a uniform. So basically, you want that kind of uniformity. So everybody wears these kind of like mucker boots and a flight suit. And then we've got this is again a 3D printed chest box and police riot gloves. And then you've got this kind of like this vest, which is bespoke made for the film. And then also we do other costumes. So like I said, we do Princess Leia's. We do also include clone troopers as well, up to Order 66. And then they move over to the 501st. So there are costumes that actually do have hard armor. And in fact, Sabine over here is like she's a dual member and a dual costume because that's canon in the Mando Mercs, but it's also a costume that you can clear in the Rebel Legion. And so what we try and do where we can is any costumes that cross over aren't necessarily exclusive to one club, but we try and then work so that the standards and the requirements to the costume are the same between the clubs. There might be a couple of nuances different, but on the whole, it's about the same, isn't it?
That's an interesting question because you think of the Imperial aspect. You can have an officer in a black soft costume, as Mark says, and there's overlaps with the Rebel Legion. With the Mando Mercs, you tend to think of more hard armour. So yeah. Are there other areas where a costumer could get in on the ground floor with something that's not quite so difficult?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the large advantages to having a costume with the Mercs is the ability to have a custom kit. Now, Talonadier's kit here is a post-Imperial kit, so we're talking the Mandalorian series onwards, and that's defined by his chest plate, which is 3D printed. In fact, all of his armour is 3D printed. We have different classifications of era. Going back a step from this, we have modern, which is like the Boba Fett style plates, and we also have legacy, like Takura's wearing at the back there with the lames. And then we can step back even further into Crusader era. And all of these different eras have their own costume requirement lists. They can be quite technical, but we have a very specific team of which Talonadier is one of the guys that helps new foundlings, as we call our new members, to build a kit to clearance. So we're very lucky that we can have that customizable look, and I think that's a big plus for us.
Hey man, it's me, Kevin Smith, Star Wars fan, Fantha Tracks fan.
You've all mentioned 3D printing in what you've said so far. For example, when the 501st started in, 98, 99, a costume that would be made back then, 3D printed wasn't an option. So would a costume of vintage like that still be cleared now, today, or have the standards changed over the years?
Basically, the standards have changed over the years because with high-def TVs and videos and Blu-rays and then ultra-high-definition broadcasts, we see a lot more detail now. So when someone spots something new, they have to update the costume reference library, and then that becomes the new standard. So if you cleared your costume early on, then yes, that would still remain current, but anyone joining, a new member, would then need to follow the new standard, basically.
And similar question, Mark, when the Rebel Legion started in, around 2000?
2000, yeah.
Yeah, so that back then, the amount of Rebel costumes that were available for people to make was far, far, far less than it is now.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're basically limited, really, to the first 3 films and then whatever ancillary material is out there. And that's the thing, whilst we cover the films, We also cover comic books and computer game characters, and that's the same for all three of the clubs. So, but the main thing is with all of these is it's about getting your research, getting your references as such. So make sure that you can see the full length of the costume, and ideally 360, so 360 degrees. So you can see all around the costume. You can see where the components are tied together, or how the backs of the boots are, and obviously the closer you can get to screen accurate, the better it is in terms of like fulfilling the goal. But it's not like the be-all and end-all. We don't try and gatekeep. So there's variants in the standards, and there are some things. So like for example, there's no full-length photos of most of the original trilogy pilots from A New Hope. So we see lots of pilots, but we don't necessarily know that Wedge Antilles is wearing the same boots as all the others. Now, it's a uniform, so we take that assumption, and until somebody comes out with evidence to say otherwise, that's how it is.
And Wayne, when the Mercs started out, I'm assuming that there was pretty much Bobber and Django and not much else, so presumably with all the other shows that have come along, Rebels and the Mando series and all the spin-offs, your access to costumes, if you want to put it that way, has expanded as much as, if not more, than the other guys?
Yeah, absolutely. With the rise of the Mando series, and then seeing other characters on screen in armour, it meant that our CRLs over particularly the last few years have had to be updated and refreshed. And but again, personally, I see it as that gives us more options and it doesn't become more restrictive. I think that's a half glass full, half empty kind of attitude. But yeah, absolutely, lots and lots of freedom there.
One of the other things that all your groups do very prominently and upfront is a lot of charity fundraising. Can you just give us a sense and give the people a flavour of what that is that you guys do when you go out there and do that kind of thing? Just give us a sense of where you go, what kind of activities you do.
So it could be anything, really. So, for instance, today we're obviously here. All of us are based over in the Star Wars fan zone. We've had a charity there for the last 2 days, and generally we ask for a donation when taking a photo, that kind of thing. They've had a few items as well on sale, and that's what we do. For most events, we try and support a charity, so charities will invite us along and photo opportunities, that kind of thing. Then there's other events where we'll bring a charity along with us, so some of the commercial organisations will invite us along to something that they're doing, and we'll bring a charity with us, and again it's we'll ask for a donation for photos and that kind of thing.
Same question to you, Mark.
Yeah, I mean, for Comic Cons that we do are almost like the nice things, they're the fun things, but really all the clubs were set up to raise money for charity on one level or another. And that can be, as Michael said, donations for photos at conventions, or it could be that we go and actually support a charitable event. So it might be a charity's putting on their own fundraiser, but they want some Star Wars characters, so we come along and we create an atmosphere, we take photos with people, and I think that's the thing. It's like, I think whenever we can, the aim is to try and make sure that at the very heart of everything we do there is charity. And therefore it gives the members a focus, it gives them a drive beyond the fact that they're building these costumes, because the costumes themselves are quite expensive, let's be fair, So it's quite nice to be able to give back in that altruistic way when you basically, it's just spent money on stuff for you.
And Wayne?
Yeah, again, pretty much I'll echo what these two guys have said before me, but from a personal standpoint, when I first built my first armour, I just wanted to make cool armour, and it wasn't until we'd done a first sort of charity-based event where I was like, oh yeah, now I get it, this is why we're here, and that now for me is what drives everything that we try and gear the clan towards participating with.
I can't not notice that we have a Star Trek guy on stage. Now, what era?
This is from the new Picard era. Hi,
okay.
Everybody. There is another club. It's called Real Icons. So anything else that's not Star Wars related, we will take you in. But we also run by the same rules. We also have things that you need to follow. The CRLs are getting mentioned again. And again, they're getting updated with every new series that Star Trek produce. There's a lot of you I see in here. We see Wanda over there. 1/4 of the Fantastic Four there. We would accept you, but And this is the caveat, folks. As it with all the clubs here, they have to follow the rules. It has to be as accurate as possible. The main thing, as echoed with my friends here, is you have to be patient. You have to get as much information as possible. Don't rush, but we are there to offer you advice at every step of the way. So ask, never be shy, keep asking.
Great point you make there about patience, about research.
Yeah.
That you're wearing is not off the shelf, easy thing. How did that costume, just briefly, how did that come to be?
Basically, as soon as a series come out, there's always someone that's going to inquire how a costume, in this case, this jacket, is made. And sometimes, if they're really lucky, they have connections or can get information directly from someone connected with the series. And that's what's happened with this leather jacket here. The actual costume maker of this leather jacket got in touch with the designers at Star Trek Picard, and he got a lot of information and made rough cuts. He then, mimicking what we do, listened to a lot of people, adapted it to make it as most screen accurate as possible. And the end result is this.
Looks fantastic, it
Thank you
really
very
does.
much.
And on a similar point, that gorgeous Shore Trooper armour, the research that goes into that must be extensive because there's so many parts to it. Where do you pull that information from?
Exactly. A lot of it is sort of all the magazines that come out and you see all the shots and that, but the filmmakers, the costume designers, they're quite friendly and approachable. As long as you're respectful and ask them sensible questions and stuff, they will be really helpful. Sometimes they'll tell you they're too busy, etc., and you just have to respect that, but most of the time they want to see their costumes being loved and respected, and yeah, you ask questions, you get great things like this.
And similar question, Mark, we've talked before on Making Tracks about single stitch, double stitch, you know, all the different details of things on Imperial costumes or caps or whatever. How granular, well, not how granular can you go, you can go as granular as you want, but how granular do you need to go to make it work?
I mean, it all depends on the costume that you're doing, because some costumes they're very detail orientated. Now, you take, say, a Padme costume, for example. All the beading, all the stitching, the fabric's got to be of a certain weight, that it's got to feel right, and that it may not necessarily need to be exactly the same fabric that they used in the films, and that's partly because the fabric may not be available these days.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark fanthatracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
My tall friend over there, who's going to come over here. Oh, he's coming up.
Oh, wow. Heads up, everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Chewbacca. Exactly. So we don't normally do this, but there's only one person who can really talk about what a Chewbacca costume is like to build, and probably more importantly, wear. So I'm going to hand over to Paul, who's going to have a quick chat about. Well, talk us through like how you kind of came about putting together this Chewbacca.
Thanks, Mark. Basically, I've been doing this for 9 years, 8 years with the Rebel Legion. The costume is really basic. You can go two routes. The expensive route, which is National Fibre technology, which is basically a stretchy rug, and you cut it to a pattern and build it, so you just cut to size. But the vast majority of Wookiees build theirs with just a mesh suit, and it's literally just synthetic hair extensions that you get from a normal hair shop or a hair supplier. It can be quite tedious. You basically get a pack that's about 50 inches long, you cut it into thirds, and then just double it over, and we've got like a latch hooking tool, and you basically just tie a knot of hair into each hole for one row, then you miss a row, then another row. You can get away with it on the legs, the back and the front. The killer's the arms, because obviously when the hair's going lie naturally, it doesn't really matter if you miss a few rows on the body, but as soon as you do that, and the hair all droops, so you've got to do a lot more. So when you're doing the body, the killer skin is the arms. Myself, my feet are really basic. They're just 2x2 wood, cut into 4 strips to give me 13 inches height, so that I'm up to Chewbacca's 7'6", and it's basically just a couple of struts, metal struts on either side, a quick release cap around my knee, and basically sandals. So I just slip it in, Velcro around the back, the suit's on in 2 minutes. So the feet took literally a couple of days to build. The suit, it's a mesh suit, so basically you just get your normal tracksuit bottoms and a t-shirt and just extend it to the length you need and then just tear it. I've built 3 Wookiees myself. The first 2 took 6 weeks to hair, but I was doing it a lot quicker. Some folk take like a year to do theirs. The mask is the really tricky bit because that, I think, makes or breaks the costume. So there's lots of opportunities. If anyone's interested in doing it, you can go the commission route. There's plenty of Wookiee builders out there that'll build you the whole thing for a cost, or you can do it for scratch, or you can do as little or as much as you want. You can buy a mask, you can build your own feet, you can build your own suit. If anyone's interested, just join the Rebel Legion. We've got a fringe group. We'll get lots of help there. There's also the Wookiee Builders group on Facebook that's got lots of builders, and again, just log in, say you're interested, and there's lots of folk, because I'm in no way an expert. There's far better Wookiee builders than myself. And the other bit that obviously we haven't really touched on is the bandolier. The majority of folk that go get their bandoliers from a lady in the States called Mel Matson. This is my original bandolier for like 8-year-old. The only thing I've done to it is the original boxes were resin, which are obviously very heavy. So once I got my 3D printer, I just printed up the boxes and changed them over. The mask itself, again, you can go for a full commission or you can buy a mask kit. The mask kit comes with, it's basically just a fiberglass skull, and all we do is we add like a hard hat liner, so it's got a quick ratchet release. It's a mesh, again, it's like latched hook here on the back for the cowl. You get a latex frame, sort of like a face, that you can use silicone sealant to glue on, and then for the majority of the face, from like here round to here, you basically just glue on, and then the rest is basically getting punched in with a fetting needle.
And what's the biggest challenge? Now you're in this now, and if you go walking off into the crowd, what's your biggest challenge?
Well, again, the sight is pretty good. There is a lot worse, like I've got a TK, and the vision in a TK is a lot worse, but you don't, like, say if you've got any young children that come up to your feet, once they come up past your nose, you just can't see them. So that's why we're really relying on spotters watching for that. The other thing is obviously I'm 7'6" in costume, so when you're walking through doorways, as soon as you duck, you cannot tell if you've ducked far enough. So again, our crew are a lifesaver to make sure that we don't bang our heads or can trip over and that. It gets hot, but what is strange is that if you actually move about, because it's a mesh suit, you actually generate a breeze. So again, in that way, it's the worst I can do is if I just stand in one place for like a long period of time. So that's why after like 15-20 minutes, I've just got to move about just to cool off and then back in again.
And I'm assuming for yourself and for the other guys with armour as well, having a spotter must be really important.
Oh yeah, they're a lifesaver. We couldn't do it without them. And generally that's one of the stipulations with spotting in the RL. You could probably troop with like a Jedi or like what we call an open face character, but because I'm a closed face, I cannot do an event unless I have a spotter. So thankfully, my dad, who's now coming up for 82, he's signed up and he's been in the Rebel Legion for almost as long as I have, and he's done so many troops, and I'm so grateful for him and all the other crew that have helped me out over the years, because like I say, we couldn't do it without them.
That's an interesting point, that it's not just the guys in costume and armour and Wookiee fur that are out front facing. There's a whole team behind you, makes it work.
Yes.
Brilliant. Can I just say, Santa is still real. I know this happened with the head, but Santa is still real, just in case anyone's worried.
This is the first time I've taken off in public in 9 years.
See?
Because I like to maintain the illusion.
Well, it looks fantastic.
Round of applause for Mr. Chewbacca then, everybody.
So, I never got to you, Wayne. And I can't even remember what the question was, because I was so distracted by the Wookiee. The armour, the gentleman next to you.
Yes.
the involvement in building that and putting that together, you mentioned this 3D armour builds in there.
Yep.
How long would a piece like that take to put together, for example?
It very much varies from person to person. There are guys in the clan who have and consistently build in 2 months, for example, from scratch. And there are people that have taken, one of our foundlings has just cleared after 10 years. And that's some patience and dedication.
Absolutely.
And there is everything in between. I mean, for myself, a build is average around 6 months. So 6 months to a year is, I think, reasonable because you've got financial implications as well. Because, as everyone said, they're not cheap kits, even though they're custom. They've got to be right. And yeah, it's a labour of love, which is why we keep doing it.
And Sabine on the end, awesome as always. How long did that take to put together?
So officially this one took me 9 months. I was the first Sabine Wren to clear in the UK, so I'm a bit of a strange one. I've actually cleared with all 3 groups due to the fact that we had the Rebel Legion, the Mandalorian Mercs, but there's also Rebel Command, which is an umbrella of sneaky rebels that have snuck into the UK garrison. It took about 9 months, had to go back on a bit of the CRL with a few of the different groups, but again, a lot of fun, a lot of research, and because Rebels was quite new at the time, officially this kit is now nearly 10 years old and is still just about standing up, apart from I'm just looking at my gloves now and thinking, I need to replace those. But it's a good kit and it's still going strong.
And are you always looking for the little improvements, if that's the right question, tweaks and adjustments?
Tweaks and adjustments can be allowed as long as they're within the CRL. It's definitely one of those things. I've actually just recoloured my hair. So I have a new wig currently. The gloves will be updated, so I'm going to get some new leather ones, which I'll then kind of paint up, but again, back to the CRL standards. And I am, like most of us, we get distracted by new and shiny costumes. Yep. And most of us have costumes that are usually on the go that we may have put aside and gone, oh, look, another shiny costume, which generally happens quite regularly. I think I have 3 on the go at home at the moment that I should really finish.
Is that always a thing, guys? Is there always another costume? You're always thinking of the next thing?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's new content coming out from Star Wars and Disney and that, and then you've got all, I mean, as said about real icons, so there's all your Marvel characters, and you get into this hobby and you watch and enjoy films and TV series, but then you start to look at the costumes and go, oh, that'd be nice. I wonder how difficult that's to make. And you start analysing them and seeing all the different details and stuff, and you start questioning, why'd they put that stitch there? Or what's that greebly that they've added on and things like that. Exactly, yeah, colours and fabrics. And I mean, I also do Director Krennic from Rogue One, and in the research for that I did, I found out there's like 11 different versions of the cape depending on what scene they were filming, etc. And there's all different weights and stuff. But I managed to fantastically have an opportunity to speak to Glyn Dillon, who designed the costume and that. And yeah, like I say, you think all the work that's gone in and the differences in the cape and that.
My name is Dean Charles Chapman, and you're listening to Fantha Tracks.
There's 6 people on this stage that are too tall to play characters from this particular show, but Mark, what character from Skeleton Crew do you think you're going to dress up as when the show comes out?
Nice, thank you very much. Probably Neil. But, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? There's Star Wars series coming out all the time. You know, we've had Outlaws this year as well. That's come out. Yeah. That's starting to create potential costume, options. So you just have to look around, the franchise. There's always options.
And that's an interesting point that you guys made, in that canon now is books and comics and TV and film. It's not just what's up on the big screen. So if you, for example, came across a Rebel character in one of the Marvel comics, and there's enough in there that somebody could pull something together, what would the clearances be for that? Would that be acceptable? Where does the line get drawn?
So, I mean, like I said, sometimes you have to maybe do a bit of extrapolation if there isn't. And I guess it all kind of comes down to, sometimes you can look, it's like a comic's a very good example, because the problem is, like, a comic's like written and drawn by an artist and a different artist in the next issue. Yeah. And so sometimes, like, you might actually have to be that specific and go, it's going to be that character from that one issue of that comic. And as long as there's enough in that kind of like that volume that you can use to make and build a reference, because then what happens is, once you build the reference and you've kind of basically done a breakdown, and that's the thing, you know, whenever you do a costume, you want to take a step back and and break the costume down. So you can then approach it in a very methodical way. You go, where am I going to get this from? How am I going to buy this? Am I going to make this? Am I going to build this? Am I going to buy it or get somebody else to do it? I mean, once you've broken the costume down, it's so much easier. It's so much less daunting as well, because you can just tick them off. Tick off the helmet, tick off the neck seal or the gloves, over a couple of months, and it makes it really easy.
I need to do this. I've been saying this for years. I've never got one done. I need to get one done. Wayne, there's always another costume.
Yes.
Is there another costume for you right now?
Yes.
Give us an insight if you can.
I'm still in planning stages, but I want to do Canon Paz Vizsla.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's a big build.
Very big build. No idea how I'm going to tackle it. I'll tell the wife. Yeah. But that's the next plan.
That's a good one. We're nearly out of time, but just one final word from each of you in respect to your groups as well, and just to let people know what this is all about. What have you got going on now? What's the latest thing that's happening with the UK Garrison?
So basically, like I say, we're here, we're part of the Star Wars fan zone, and we're starting to work with all the other clubs, and we're just being much more collaborative and open about what we do and stuff. And we're all over the UK basically, and yeah, so just look out, check our website out, and see where we are, and come and see us and say hello.
As an outsider, it was really good to see all your groups working so nicely together. Not that you haven't in the past, but it's very noticeable now. Mark, speak a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, you think about it, it's one galaxy, and like I said, it's one goal. So we're here to raise money for charity. We're here to have fun and put smiles on people's faces. So it doesn't matter if you're in a Shore Trooper, a Stormtrooper, Star Trek, you're in like a Mando, a pilot, Chewbacca, Senator Amidala, or Clone Trooper or whatever. We all do it for the same reason. And the thing is, we're one big happy family when we get together to these events. So, hit us up. And if you want to do a Mando costume, or you're not sure which costume club you need to go to fit in, that's fine. If you speak to us of the Rebel Legion, we'll pass you over to the Garrison or the Mandos. So, and that's the whole point, because then hopefully we'll see you at a troop, you'll be cleared, and we can go, oh, that's fantastic, because it's all about the journey rather than, everything else. So,
nicely said. Final word to you, Wayne.
What do you want me to say?
Whatever you want.
Final word. No, I just think it's great. All right, yeah, that's a good one. We'll do that in a minute. I think it is great that we're all working together. The Star Wars Zone over the last couple of days has been an absolute joy to be a part of, and just see everybody working side by side together. So great success. This is the way.
This is the way indeed. Give a big round of applause for these fine people, please.
Email radio@fanthatracks.com. Head to links.fanthatracks.com for links to our social media feeds, Fanthatracks TV and Fanthatracks Radio. Thanks to James Semple for the Fanthatracks intro, Blues Harvest for our Making Tracks opening music, and Mark Daniel and Vanessa Marshall for our voiceovers. New episodes drop Tuesdays and Fridays at 7 o'clock UK time. Our weekly news show, Good Morning Tatooine, goes live Sundays at 9 o'clock UK time on Facebook and YouTube. And remember, Fanthatracks is absolutely free, so it costs nothing to stay updated on all the latest Star Wars news.
Coming up next on Fanthatracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.